am a 29-year-old man who's been married for 6 years. In February, I discovered that my wife had an affair with the proprietor of an inn when we were in Hawaii. In September, my wife and I traveled to Hawaii. We usually stay in hotels in Hawaii, but this time we opted to stay at an inn to get a more local feel for the island. When we arrived at the inn, the owner met us outdoors. He was a decent young man in his 30s who worked as a photographer for Vans. We had a fantastic week, and the inn was an excellent pick. After we left the island, the inn owner started texting my wife constantly on social media. She was caught in several of his traps. He'd say things like, "Leave your deadbeat husband alone," and "I'll make your fashion career amazing. Come live with me on the island. I can get you a job at Vans," and so on. Something started to go wrong between me and my wife. I asked her questions about him, but she always avoided answering. She would interact with him via Snapchat, Instagram, and sometimes FaceTime. I became suspicious of my wife and started looking for evidence. I felt awful going behind her back at first, but I felt compelled to do it. I saw an email she sent to a psychic in which she asked, "Do you see anything with a man named Asterisk? He recently entered my life." My heart dropped when I read this. I quickly grabbed my phone and texted her the contents of the email. Of course, she denied everything and gave me the runaround, and I believed her. 6 to 10 months passed, yet I could always tell something was wrong. I had a horrible feeling every time I remembered her reaction when I asked her what the email was about. I began to have trouble sleeping and had strange nightmares. It eventually escalated to an anxious panic attack, something I had never had before in my life. These assaults would occur just before I went to sleep. I ultimately resorted to marijuana to help me relax and sleep. She opted to spend the summer in Hawaii with her sister. I was unable to join that trip due to job constraints. I paid for her trip and had no idea she would meet the owner of the inn where we were already staying. She sneaked out the door when her sister was sleeping, and the guy picked her up in his automobile. They allegedly had intimacy in his car, after which they separated. She claimed she didn't like the whole thing and felt terrible as soon as she got in the car. She felt awful, regretful, ashamed of her actions. She kept this secret for over 2 years. She decided to tell me about it because we were having problems in our marriage and said we were better off separated. That came as a complete surprise to me. I said I was happy for her, that she wouldn't have to relive it in herself anymore. All night, I simply held her and we sobbed together. The following several days and perhaps weeks were the most difficult. I kept wondering how I hadn't seen this coming. What is it about me that compelled her to pursue another relationship? It's been almost 4 months since I found out, and every night before bed, I feel pain and despair. Every morning, my first idea is of her being disloyal to me for the first 2 to 3 hours of the day. I'm usually ill and queasy. We've had a lot of heart-to-heart talks, and I genuinely believe she feels remorse and wishes she could undo everything. But I still feel sick and queasy every day for some reason. I eventually decided to message the man since I was so fed up with everything emotionally. I contacted him on Instagram. I woke the next morning to a message from his wife. His wife stated she spotted my message and wanted to talk to me. I decided to call her and chat about our significant others hooking up. I was expecting to find out how much my wife was involved in the connection, but she didn't have any evidence for me. She claimed to have seen only one screenshot of my wife in a bikini on his phone. She stated that the screenshot seemed to be a post on her Instagram story, implying that it was not anything my wife gave him. She continued to tell me about her spouse and how he behaves. She said he's a narcissist who's hooked on pornography, and that my wife is one of 20 other females he has on his Instagram. She stated that she has tried to get him treatment, but he is quite hostile. She told me a tale about him renting out an apartment on his property to a fitness model. And one day he forcefully thrust himself on her, but she resisted so strongly that he left. He must have talked her into not pressing charges against him. After my talk with his wife, I was convinced that my wife had become involved with a predator. She was victimized like hundreds of other girls he harassed. My wife was a victim, in my opinion. Next story. My wife cheated on me with a friend of mine early last year. I tried to get over it, but I'm not sure I can. We've 4 children and have only been together for a short time. We hadn't even slept with anyone else before we met. I was gone with the 3 eldest kids for a holiday early last year. She had to stay at home since the baby became ill. When I returned home after a week, I discovered she had been cheating on me. They'd been chatting on Snapchat for about a month, and she'd asked him to our place. As events unfolded, they had an intimate connection on her couch. It took her a week to tell me everything. She said they were just kissing, but I didn't believe her. So I kept questioning her about it, and she ultimately confessed. The guy lives nearby. He's married, and they have kids our age. Their daughter pays us frequent visits. We've been working out together and had gone over to their house for supper a few times. I still run into him and his wife at the grocery school, or while picking up the kids from a birthday celebration. My first reaction was terror. My parents split, and I promised myself that I would never do the same. She did her best to assure me that it was all a mistake, and that I was in fact the guy of her dreams. I tried everything I could to make things right. We went to a spa for couple treatment and began talking about everything we hadn't mastered well in our marriage. We began spending more time together, and things began to feel a little better. I couldn't shake the feeling of numbness I had when she claimed she regretted it, that she loved me and just wanted me. I never really felt it. Even now, it doesn't truly sink in when she says she loves me, and I struggle to say it back. I'm numb and half-hearted. I'm not sure I can claim I still love her. Some argue that love is a choice, but is it? That when I'm around her, I don't feel present. Apart from family and friends, we've never had so much to speak about. We seldom talk about things I like or have engaging conversations. We don't share interest in books, TV series, or movies. There's nothing wrong with her. She simply doesn't have a lot of hobbies. She is, however, an excellent housewife, which she chose. Now that I'm not sure what I feel for her, I'm having trouble finding reasons to keep going other than the kids, the house, and the practical stuff. I feel terrible thinking about leaving, and the sorrow it'd cause everyone around me if I did. It's worth noting that about 6 years ago, I discovered that she was emailing another person pictures of herself in her underwear. I eventually forgave her for it. I'm leaving, and have found a small apartment nearby where I'll be for a while until we find the right solution. Every day is a reminder of how shattered our relationship has been since the beginning. We've never had many disagreements, but I know that's because we've never addressed the genuine issues. We just ignored them. She told me they only kissed when I initially found out about the adultery a year ago. It was a week before she told me they had been intimate. She stated that it happened unintentionally just once, that they panicked, and that he ran away quickly, despite the fact that they'd been chatting on Snapchat for 30 days straight. She said it was just flirting. I never truly believed that, and I asked her about it several times over the year, but she never confessed it was anything else or more. Unable to hold back any longer, I checked her phone and looked at the records from a year ago. I noticed that something didn't stack up. The location and search history indicated a far different tale than she had. When I asked her about it, she finally admitted that they had been intimate at the beginning of the month, and then they talked every day for a few weeks before it happened again. So she knew precisely what was going to happen when she invited him to her house at the end of the month while I was gone. She also went to a church dinner with his entire family the same day they had intimacy, taking her youngest child with her. She even asked them all over for supper once a week. This alters the entire plot. It's far worse than she initially told me. I can't believe she could do such a thing. I was planning to leave before I found out about this, and now I'm simply stunned that someone I've trusted for so long could do something like this to both myself and his family. I feel like all of my efforts to repair this relationship were futile since the tale she gave me was a lie. She never admitted how serious this was. Either way, I'm glad I live separately. The primary difficulty is that I will have to relate to her for the rest of my life due to our children. Because of this, I'm having a hard time not harboring hatred toward her, and I know I'll have to forgive her someday for the sake of my children. I should be able to communicate with her. If we do, their lives will be so much better. My wife Harper and I have been married for over 10 years. We have 2 children, ages 6 and 8. Our marriage had been difficult for a long time before her closest friend, Safia, arrived. Safia is an expat who has been in our nation for over 7 months. She met my wife online when she was studying English. Safi was the instructor. Her situation in her native country was difficult owing to the issue, and she was seeking for a way out of the nation and a new job. Harper got along well with her right away and ended up forwarding her a job posting in our city. Sonia was recruited and relocated here 3 months later to a house my wife found for her. My wife had lately had a falling out with her best friend of many years, Riley. Riley has been a poisonous person from the beginning. For example, she quit as Harper's maid of honor a week before our wedding and then showed up in a white gown. Harper is unquestionably better off without her, and I was delighted that she had met a new friend. But then everything went horribly wrong. Harper clearly has a far stronger emotional bond with Sophia than she does with me. I recently had a conversation with her about it and admitted that I'd rather I was more important. There is no chance Harper will decrease contact as a result of it. Sophia is the sort to constantly go along with Harper's plans. Thus, they're almost inseparable. Also, my wife doesn't like physical touch. But that said, for example, she puts her head on Sophia's shoulder when she's watching TV. We are not from the same city. Sophia lives in the city center, but we live 45 minutes out in a more rural setting. Harper meets Sophia many times every week and occasionally stays with her when they go partying. The reason given at first was that Sanja didn't know our language and she required her assistance in settling in. I'm very sure they see each other more regularly than my wife lets on. Harper once informed me that she had gone to another city for work training, but it was later revealed that they had gone together. Sophia also pays frequent visits to our home. My kids are completely smitten with her. She used to be a kindergarten teacher, so she knows how to interact with youngsters. My mother often shouts her praises for Harper's girlfriend. She is adored by everyone. She is really pleasant to me, cracks jokes, and has attempted to connect with me despite the language barrier. Because we don't have a guest room, she uses our bedroom when she visits. Due to my sleep apnea, my wife and I generally sleep separately, but when we have visitors, we share the same bed. But not when Sonia comes over. They always sleep together. The kicker is that Sophia is bisexual. She has been in a long-distance relationship with her lover for over a year. I'd always believed that my wife was, at the very least, inquisitive, but we never discussed it until lately when she abruptly confirmed it. I'm scared my wife is falling for this woman. I doubt she'll respond, but you never know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Sophia will only be here for 2 years, but that's a long time. Harper will not leave in a circumstance like ours. She is financially reliant on me, and the home is in my mother's name, but it doesn't make things any better. What would you do if you were in my place? Thank you for listening to the story to the end, and if you like it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. Let's write in the comments what you think about the story.